Hi students. So I'm going to make a flip here. This is a flip for you in continuation of what we already did in the class. So we did the mind mapping for energy. So one of your friends actually told very nicely that why do we do mind mapping, because it'll pretty much make a comprehensive summary of everything, and it'll get the directions, the components, the information, the insights, the issues, everything gets put up in like a branched in a network format, and everything is sitting in that one place where you can just look at the entire map and you can actually summarize and recollect and get a good feel for how to revise concepts and topics. But there is one caveat here. What you should also do is seeing somebody else's mind map or the map is not good enough. If you do the mind mapping yourself, then actually it makes a big difference, because you're the one who is branching and writing things and making boxes. So you begin to think and you try to make it more comprehensive, you make it more logical, you make it more sequential. So it actually helps for you to do it. So I would recommend all of you to do the mind mapping by yourself and not look at your friend's map. No use if you do it, because you actually cannot understand how your friend came to that particular network or that particular map. That is one thing. And second thing, I recommend all of you, when you're doing the mind mapping, please keep your books in landscape format, not in a portrait format. So keep it in landscape, because the beauty of mind mapping is everything goes wider and wider and wider. So we think in terms of range and width. We don't actually think in terms of top to bottom, but we end up writing top to bottom, and that is why we actually do not get the breadth of the topics and breadth of the subjects, and we don't actually recollect our issues of the subjects really well, because when we think sideways, lateral. It's lateral thinking. But when we write, we go top to bottom. Okay, that's your introduction. So let's mind map second chapter. So what do? You focus on the screen, right, Isha?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
so what do we do? I will just say first box, I'll just say thermodynamics. Now, whenever we talk about thermodynamics, we always talk about what is it that we are going to have our interest on. So that is called the system, whatever we are interested on. It can be your body, a human body. That is a system of interest. That is a subject of interest. Whatever is a subject of interest, whose energy mapping and bookkeeping that you do, the energy bookkeeping that you do of a particular subject of interest, that subject of interest, we call that as the system. Whatever you are interested in, it can be the human body, it can be your refrigerator, it can even be your soup pan, it can be your car, it can be your entire house. So we call that as a system. So I think we have defined system, which is a subject of interest whose energy bookkeeping you will keep track of. So I will write SYS, system. So as soon as you say human body and there is a certain subject of interest and you call that as a system, obviously it is not isolated, it is not shut off from what it is having around it. So what is it that is around this system, which is the environment? We call that as the surroundings. So whenever you have a system, you will have surroundings. So I will write it as SURR. So whenever you have a subject of interest system, it is going to be surrounded by its environment, which is the surroundings. So whenever you have a system and surroundings, what is going to be there between that? Because you differentiate and you say, and you are able to discern, and you are able to say, this is system, this is surroundings, Then how do you discern? You can only discern two things. A black and a white color you can discern only if there is what between black and white? If there is a boundary. Without boundaries we cannot differentiate two different things, correct? So that is where you understand the significance of boundary. So you have to understand, whenever you say system and surroundings, you also should know where the boundary is. So whether it is a stationary boundary, whether it can never move, an immovable boundary, or whether it is a flexible, movable boundary. So that is what you can write here. Fixed boundary, movable boundary, or flexible boundary. You can write it. Now let's go back to system. So what do we have in system? We already said it is having surroundings around it. So now you can, in thermodynamics, we usually have, before I go to isolated system, we usually talk about two types of system: open system and closed system. What is an open system? Whenever you have transfer of both mass and energy between the system and the surroundings, both. When there is a transfer of both, you call it as an open system. Okay, so what is the other side of open? Closed system. So in the closed system, you do not have transfer of mass. You have only transfer of energy between the system and the surroundings. Only energy. So now, if you think of the open system, so we have to think of some examples of open system. What is an open system? Maybe examples you can put. Your open coffee mug. Open coffee mug. Your open soup pan or a frying pan. Or water flowing in a pipe. Water in a pipe. These are all open because the water can come from the outside, it can go flow through the pipe, which is your subject of interest, which is a system, and then the water can flow out, water flowing in a pipe. So there is both transfer of mass as well as the energy that the water brings. So you have both. So these are open system examples. So when you have, now if you focus on the example of coffee, open mug or an open frying pan or water flowing in a pipe, now you can little bit refine this and think of this as, now you should focus only on the system. What is the system? It's a pipe. What is happening in the pipe? Water is flowing in a pipe. How is the water flowing in a pipe? Water comes from outside, flows through the pipe, inside the pipe, and then it flows outside and it goes outside. Okay, water flowing in a pipe. System is the pipe. Now what kind of a system is this, other than you say that it's open system? What do we have here when we consider volume and mass? Is it controlled volume or is it controlled mass? So now if you think about the system, you are not changing the volume of the pipe. So the open systems typically fall under control volume, where the volume of the system remains constant. The volume of the coffee mug remains constant. The volume of your frying pan remains constant. The volume of the pipe remains constant. But what is changing there in a control volume? The mass can change. If you change the flow rate, then more mass of water can come in and more mass of water can go out. So what you are changing is mass is changing, but you are not changing the control volume of the system. So one of the types of problems that you will come across your entire semester is, people will say these are control volume examples. So then don't blink, that means the volume of the system is not changing, but the mass of whatever is there inside it, of the components, of the materials, that can change. I think we are clear about this. That's control volume. What's the other side of the control volume? Now, how did we arrive at control volume? We looked at the open system and we arrived at the control volume. Now you go to closed systems where everything is shut, completely shut. So you closed your coffee mug tightly with a cap. You close the frying pan tightly with a lid. All your buttermilk is tightly sealed when you buy it. Your yogurt is tightly sealed when you buy it. So all these food products that you buy, when you buy, they're all tightly sealed. They're all closed systems because there is no mass transferring from the system to the surroundings. In this case, we are calling all these food products as the system of interest. So what is this? What is controlled here? What remains constant in the closed systems? The mass remains constant. Control mass. But the box can deform. The volume of the box can change, correct? In all your food products. Now, for example, if you have an expired buttermilk or an expired yogurt, and if it has fermented massively, heavily inside the dairy product, what will happen? It will be bloated. The mass would not have changed, but fermentation, a biochemical reaction would have occurred, and it would have created expansion of the boundary of your container, whatever brand that you're buying, Britannia or whatever else that you're buying. The yogurt or the buttermilk carton or the box or the Tetra Pak will be bloated. It will be bloated because fermentation has happened. So the mass has not changed, but the volume of the system is flexible. It can change. The volume of the system can change. So what are these? So these are examples for control mass. So you can think of few other examples. So I thought of fermentation in an expired yogurt or in a buttermilk or milk. Anything where you have a chemical reaction and where it's expanded, or some temperature changes happens inside a balloon. The balloon expands. So that is also control mass because there is no mass transferring from the system to the surroundings outside. So you can come up with more examples for control mass. So these are your two major divisions in your entire semester. So we will talk about, whenever we talk about thermodynamic properties, we will usually break that down into open system, that is the control volume, and then the closed system, that will be the control mass. So get comfortable with control volume and control mass and don't trip over it. What are you doing? Okay, don't trip over it. So are we making progress with the mind mapping now? Next, what do you say with thermodynamics? Next, what do you say? You will say, what are the variables? What are the thermodynamic variables or properties? Both. You can. So when you say variables and properties, there is a truckload of things like pressure, temperature, volume, heat capacity, thermal expansion coefficient, enthalpy, entropy, work done. All this will fall into the variables and the properties. You can write variables and properties. The way I would like to break this down is, I will usually break this down into stimulus and response. So then in the stimulus, I would like to put P, V, T. So whenever you have a stimulus of pressure, when you apply pressure, what can happen? If you have a constant volume, if you have an insulated system, what will happen when you apply pressure and compress the material inside? When you compress the material inside in an adiabatic system, in an insulated system, what will happen? The heat, the friction will develop between the molecules of whatever component is there because you are forcing them to bombard against each other. So you are applying pressure and you keep it insulated. So what will be the response? Some temperature change or heat will develop. Now let's say we leave it as non-adiabatic, it's non-insulated. So when you have application of pressure, what will you get usually? You will either get volume change, work done. So what will it be? Work, the response will be either work or heat flow. What else is there? I think that's pretty much it. These are your two major things. You will get heat flow, work, or the other thing will be entropy changes. Entropy changes will happen. So now, if you take this work, heat flow, entropy, so I broke up your variables and properties into stimulus. Stimulus commonly will be P, V and T, and then the responses will be whatever that the system does. Either heat will flow from inside to outside or from outside to inside, or work will be done on the system, or the system will do work, or there will be changes. Entropy generation will happen either in the surroundings or in the system. So all this is there. So then heat flow, so what was the property that's usually associated with heat flow? It is the response. So when you take heat flow for the temperature changes, you will say heat capacity, then you will have entropy, then you will have work. So now, since you got all of this here, you got the stimulus and the response. Now I would little bit classify these as now intensive variables properties and extensive variables properties. So what is intensive variables and properties? Those are the variables and properties that do not depend on how much of the material is there. It does not depend on how much, the quantity, the amount of the material that is there. Those are the intensive variables. So what are the typical examples? Temperature, pressure, density, the packing of the materials. That is not affected by how much is there. It is intensive, it is intrinsic to that material. So it does not depend on how much of material is there. What depends on how much of material is there? Heat capacity, entropy, work. These all depend on the amount of enthalpy, internal energy. So I will start with internal energy, work, enthalpy, entropy, heat capacity. All these depend on how much amount of material is there. So these will all fall under extensive variables and properties, extensive, while these fall under intensive properties and variables. So what happened now? In thermodynamics, I moved into variables and properties, and I got into stimulus and response, and then I got into intensive and extensive variables. So we slowly introduced ourselves to all these: temperature, pressure, density, internal energy, work, enthalpy, entropy, heat capacity, all these kind of things. So this is a good offshoot. The next offshoot of thermodynamics would be, because now we do what did I say? What is actually thermodynamics? We do book what? What did I say, Isha? Bookkeeping. We do bookkeeping. So why do we do bookkeeping? We do bookkeeping during what? During a certain duration of time. Because what is happening during that duration of time? There is maybe some kind of a process that is happening. So we not only talk about system in thermodynamics as a major, our focus of interest or as our subject of interest, but we also talk about what process that system is undergoing. So the next thing that comes here as an offshoot is process. So what is a process? A process is one of those journey of a system where it goes from its initial to some other state, and it goes through a bunch of steps or a single step. It can be whatever it can be, how many ever steps. So it goes from one initial state to another final state. And then we say that system has undergone a process. So now if you are going to the gym, all of you are very active and gym goers, I know that. So you are going to go and do a shoulder press. Now you are going to lift weights. So first you go, you sit, so you are the system of interest, individual. So let's call Ritik. Ritik is the system of interest. He's going to go to the gym and do shoulder press. So he sits, he gets in position and he holds the barbells. Yeah, so he is holding the barbells and that is his initial state. Now he is going to do shoulder press, which means he's going to lift, I think 40 pounds. He's a strong man and he's going to lift it over his head and he's going to extend his arm completely. And that when he does that, that would be the final state of Ritik. So initial state, simply making contact with the barbell that is sitting on the support, and then he is going to exert and pick it up and lift it over his head and extend his arm and stop there. That is his final state. So you have the initial. So Ritik is going through a process. So whenever we say a process, there's two things that come into picture. We talk about where are the equilibrium points. So that means what is equilibrium? And that is one thing. Equilibrium will be when you are sitting relaxed at the initial state. I can make you sit for maybe 10 years and hoping that nothing will change. Then if it is unchanging, then you are at equilibrium. Now after you lift the weight and you can stand like that for 10 years, and let's say that you are unchanging, then in the final state also you are at equilibrium. So when you go from, so basically what is equilibrium? In a process we always talk about equilibrium to equilibrium. That means where you have an unchanging state.
Equality.
Like from the initial to the final state. That is equilibrium. So there's also one more thing we talk about. Now when I'm going from initial state to final state, I can go slowly and gradually and lift the weight, like how my coach has taught me. Or I can just jerk my hand and just try to extend my arm and try to push the barbell up. So in which case will you actually think that there is balance of forces happening at all the intermediate steps? If I go slow and gradual, so I am first keeping my arm, it's bent, the barbell is sitting on the support, I lift only 1 inch and I hold it there. So is there an equilibrium that has formed? Then I lift another 1 inch, because my coach told me lift the weights slowly and gradually. The rate of lift should be very, very slow. And if you're going to add extra weights also as you're lifting, you add the weights gradual amounts. Don't dump suddenly 40 pounds when he is trying to lift, don't put another 40 pounds. He might go to another equilibrium state in a very quick manner, and that might be fallen on the floor. He might collapse and fall on the floor. So that could be also another equilibrium state which he will reach, but he will reach that very fast. So whenever you do things very fast and the process goes really fast, where you cannot take snapshots of what is happening at the intermediate stages, then we say that the process underwent a non-equilibrium process from the initial state to the final state. So it just shot off really fast. So you're not able to actually take snapshots, and there was no equilibrium that was maintained during that intermediate stage. But the other way of that is, if you go slow and gradual, and if you can maintain equilibrium at every step that you're lifting the weight, which is what your coach tells you. So I think now you know why your coach tells you to do that. He tells you to maintain equilibrium at all stages as you're working out in the gym. Because if there is an imbalance of forces, if you do it in a hurried manner and if there is an imbalance of forces, then you know what will happen. Either you are going to push the equipment off, or the equipment is going to push you off. So either way, some accident is going to happen. And when that happens, even if you cannot push the equipment off, something of your body might get pushed off. So you might break a bone, or you might sprain, you might tear something. So that is why your coach tells you go slow and maintain equilibrium at all times, which means it is going really slow in a quasi-equilibrium intermediate steps. So there's two ways a process can happen: in an equilibrium manner, where you will have quasi-equilibrium intermediate steps, and in a non-equilibrium manner. So in which case you will be reversible. If you're going slow and if you lift the weights 1 inch, then you can easily go back to your initial state. So which means it is a reversible process. You can, if you go slow and gradual, you can maintain the process to be reversible. You can lift, go down. You can lift, go down. You can lift a little more, come back to the other state. You can lift a little more, come back down. So every step you can maintain up, down, up, down, up, down. That up, down is you are maintaining the reversibility. So you can maintain the reversibility nature of the process. But if you go really fast, it is not reversible. So it becomes a non-equilibrium, irreversible process. It becomes an irreversible process. There is no reversibility there. There is no interface. There is no equilibrium that is maintained at all the intermediate steps. So I think we are good. So I think I will stop here. So tomorrow when I come in, I will start with force, which I have already done. So you can take me through force, energy, and what exactly energy means. Then you have already done the potential energy, kinetic energy, and all that kind of thing. And then we can go to measurements of force, pressure, and temperature. I think that's what we can do. I think so. So far, how do I summarize? So you started with thermodynamics, a system, and then a surroundings, and a boundary between system and surroundings, then an open system, closed system, control mass, control volume, examples of that. Then thermodynamic variables and properties. So you can break them down into stimulus, response, and then you can come out with all your examples for stimulus, response, and then you can also classify them as intensive variables and extensive variables. And then you can talk about what is a process of what the system undergoes from initial state to final state. How does it go? Equilibrium process, non-equilibrium process, reversible, irreversible. And if it is cyclic, if it comes back to its initial state, then it becomes a cyclic process, where a system will go through some changes, go through many steps, but if it comes back to its initial stage, like steam, water, you boil it, you make it go into a vapor state, then you again condense it, and you bring it back to water. So if you keep doing that repeatedly, then you make that process a cyclic process. So you can have cyclic processes and non-cyclic processes. So I gave you an example of fermentation in the
Yogurt.
Tetra Pak, in the yogurt, buttermilk, curd. So obviously, is that a cyclic process or is that a non-cyclic process? Easily you can come up with the answer. So I think this is a good place to stop. So welcome to the course. So this is how I will try and put flip lectures whenever I feel that I should be putting. So this is a mind mapping. So everybody go through this, and we will go into force, pressure measurements, and temperature measurements in the class. Catch you guys. Bye.